Welcome back to the 13 Tribe Podcast, where we are spiritually in tuned and socially engaged. I am 13th Amendment alongside with my brother and rhyme and co-host Rifika. Say what's up to the people, man.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Rifika. First off, all glory go to God, none to me. You know what I'm saying? I'm very happy y'all have joined us tonight. We're very happy. There's been a lot of good buzz about the show thus far. We hope y'all continue to rock with us. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, absolutely. And as you know, it's our goal to speak on issues that affect the urban community and provide thoughtfulness from a messianic perspective. When Yeshua speaks, we hope to be basically like the conduits because we are not disconnected from reality. We are affected, but we're not infected by the system, if that makes sense to you. Before we get started, I want to say, please hit that like, that share, that subscribe, be a friend, tell a friend, because we want this thing to go as far as it can possibly go. Today's topic is a bit heavy, but just tell you a little bit about myself. I did undergrad at Georgia State University, got bachelor's in marketing, and spent a little bit of time before I went and got a master's in theology, or actually a master's in divinity from Fuller Theological Seminary in Houston. So for a minute, I had left Atlanta and stayed in Houston for about a good 4 years to do a master's in divinity. And now I'm back in the ATL and man, doing a lot of big things out here. Want to see things take off. And Rifika, tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background.
Yeah, man, my educational background, I went to Prairie View A&M University. I studied music education there. I actually used to be a teacher. I taught elementary music for 6 years in Houston, Texas, in the Houston, Texas area, in Fort Bend Independent School District. I was at Rosa Parks Elementary for 6 years, so I got to see a class of kids go all the way up from kindergarten all the way up through 5th grade. And I wanted to song grow up, so that was very special to me. I taught choir, elementary choir there, and I had to throw the programs and all that kind of stuff, so that was fun. Then once I used to do like more. I have a marching band background. I did DCI Drum Corps International. That's the highest level marching band you can do. I won a world championship with the Cavaliers in
Nice.
2004. So
Nice.
what I would do is a school called Willow Ridge High School used to hire me to come back and work with them with their visual aspects, their core style marching and things like that. That's like more so, core style is more so what they call the white style of band. Show band is like what you see more how in Clark, Atlanta, Prairie View, TSU, stuff like that. So I know how to do both styles, but I know how to help those those high schools and stuff. So because I had helped Willow Ridge High School in the past, the new band director wanted me to wanted to hire me on and me to come on staff to work with them. So they offered me that job as an assistant band director at Willow Ridge High School in Fort Bend ISD. So I ended up going there teaching high school band for about 3 years.
Okay.
Or I moved to Las Vegas, Nevada. When I moved to Las Vegas, Nevada, because I wanted to have more time to pursue my Christian rap career, you know what I'm saying, and acting. Because when you're a band director, man, you don't have no life. You like a football coach. You there all the time. Sometimes I wouldn't get home from work. If we had a football game, I get to work at 7 a.m., wouldn't get home from work till 2 a.m. because we had to be there till the last kid got picked up from school. So I was like, when I went to Vegas, I was like, I'm gonna teach elementary again. So I taught at Manch Elementary in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I always taught in Title I areas, which is in lower income areas, because I felt like they needed positive male influence, or especially positive male influences of color. You know what I'm saying? You don't see a lot of that elementary level. So I wanted to give my services there. So I worked there. I had a lot of fun working there for 3 years, and that ended up putting me at 12 years of total teaching before I moved out here to Atlanta.
Okay.
Transition a little bit about talking about my teaching background and stuff like that. When I was actually, a lot of things have happened lately. It's been a lot of shootings around the country, man. Our hearts and prayers go out to those people, definitely, man. I was actually, when the first one happened, Um,
Yeah.
also talking about it right now. When the first one happened in 2012, the same
Mm-hmm.
shooting in Connecticut, I was teaching elementary school at that time. I think I might have been on my 5th year teaching elementary, 5th or
Mm-hmm.
6th, somewhere around there. And that was real hard, man, because I'm teaching that level of students.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
at that time, and you saw a lot of it was a heightened security as far as they always used to do the lockdown drills,
Yeah.
but there were more lockdown drills after that. You know what I'm saying? A lot of stuff was out. Not to say it wasn't taken seriously before, but we hadn't really seen anything on this level at elementary school. We had seen it at high schools and stuff like that, but we
Yeah.
hadn't seen it at elementary school. Didn't even think that was possible. Also, I remember people talking about. I don't know if that actually no bills were passed or nothing like that, but there was talks of teachers can't, which I thought was crazy, talking about talks of teachers possibly carrying all the kinds. That wouldn't be a good thing, and all that. But yeah, man, I remember that. Luckily, I always had in my classrooms, I always had like a closet that we could do for as the lockdown drill. So when I had lockdown drill, I would actually, because it had a storage closet for the music equipment and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
when my lockdown drill, I make sure my door was always locked. Especially after Sandy Hook, I would always make sure my door was locked anyway. Some teachers kept their door open, but I would always lock my door anyway when I was teaching. So
So,
people had to knock on the door to come in.
so
But
you would probably say that, you know what I'm saying, that in a sense, as a result of like what happened at Sandy Hook, like the whole culture of like how, you know what I'm saying, elementary school had basically shifted, you know what I'm saying? Because you were teaching before the Sandy Hook incident happened. And then when
yeah,
it happened, you saw like a drastic difference between like how things took place before and how stuff took place after.
yeah, there were more drills and more preparations for that. They had various codes that they would say over the intercom and stuff like that for us to know. Luckily, nothing like that ever happened at any schools that I was working with. But yeah, it was a
Yeah.
lot more. Um, it was a lot more that was going on at that time to make sure that
Yeah.
we were prepared for a situation like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
and I, and I want to say, man, and this is what's kind of interesting, right? Because school shootings have always happened throughout, you know, what I'm saying, throughout American history, right? And when I was looking this thing up, what kind of hit me was that most of the times when you talk about school shootings, you're talking about maybe like one kid, maybe two kids. I think at the most it was maybe five kids. And then all of a sudden, 19, I want to say 1990, I want to say either 96 or 99. I can't remember the exact year. Columbine, and I just want to, you know, kind of make sure that I'm being, you know, factual. But I remember when when the Columbine High School incident happened, and this was 19, gosh, I just want to make sure I'm touching this thing right because this right here was like a shocker.
yeah, that was.
Pull up the year. It's coming up too, but just wanted to make sure I'm touching on this thing right. You know,
Mhm.
excuse my lack of professionalism. Um, but 19, uh, and you know what's crazy? I'm sitting here looking at all these school shootings, and I mean, I have to scroll through. I have all these mass shootings. I got to scroll through so much just to get to the year that Sandy Hook happened. I mean, not Sandy Hook, but Columbine, and this was April 20th, 1999.
Wow.
And so up until that time, you probably seeing maybe about, you know what I'm saying, 5 to 10. Oh, now again, going back to being factual, in 1998 in Springfield, Oregon, Thurston High School, there was a shooting. 25 people were killed.
Mm.
And you know what I'm saying? But we always tend to hear about Columbine High School. And Columbine High School, let me make sure I'm just being like straight up factual with this. Sorry, 25 people were injured in Thurston High School, and that's in Oregon, right?
Yeah.
4 people were killed. But in Columbine, 21 people were injured 15 people were killed. So in Columbine, that would happen to be the most deaths recorded, you know what I'm saying, in the 20th century when it comes to school shootings. You know what I'm saying? That was the most deaths. But as far as like injuries, there was, you know, in uh Thurston High School in Springfield, Oregon, you're talking about uh 25 students that were injured, but 4 that actually died as a result. So it was like, so and I'm saying that's to say that all of a sudden, you know, saying when you get down into the 90s, specifically the later 90s, you're talking about more deaths. You know what I'm saying? Like more people had died as a result of a mass shooting, specifically school. You know, saying high school kids.
Yeah.
So I remember Columbine and how much it had rocked us. You know what I'm saying? Like literally, it was just kind of like a shift. You know what I'm saying? In our culture when Columbine happened, and it's weird because they talk about Columbine, but we don't talk about Thurston. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And maybe we talk about Columbine because that's when the most kids had died. But in Thurston, you had 25 people that were injured. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? And so it's just weird that, you know, from what I'm seeing is like you got this culture of kids, you know what I'm saying? That is if we want to be honest right now, we're in a gun culture, right? And we're not just in a gun culture, but we're in a mass shooting. We have a you can really, in a sense, coin America as having a mass shooting culture.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? That's just where we are right now, and that was just in the late '90s. I mean, if I go to, you know what I'm saying, to 2000 and present,
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I'm saying, like what rocked us the most was maybe what Sandy Hook. But look at this. Virginia Tech,
Yeah.
33 kids, 33 college students and faculty have died. 23 were injured, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, these are the ones, and and I guess because of the level of death, these were the ones that made the news. But, you know, DeKalb, Illinois, Northern Illinois University, you know what I'm saying? 21 that were injured, six that died as a result. And I mean, you know, and this is in the 2000s, you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? So to me, I'm just, you know, I get kind of tired of talking about this, especially among my peers, and that's why you know, I feel like it's kind of good that we have this podcast, because this is kind of a way for us to like really dialogue about this, and also dialogue this from a perspective that rarely gets talked about in the media. You know what I'm saying? Because we are also wondering, okay, what is God saying about all these things that are taking place? You know what I'm saying? I mean, what are you thinking, man? You know what I'm saying? Like this right here. What are you thinking?
As far as how God's feeling about just the
No,
mass.
just about like all these, you know what I'm saying, all these shootings that are just taking place in school. Cause you mentioned, you know, Sandy Hook, you know, occurring at the time that you was a teacher.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm sitting here thinking about again going back to like 1999 when, you know what I'm saying, when I guess from a media standpoint, was the first time that we heard about, you know, about all these kids being killed in school. You know what I'm saying? Talking about 15 kids killed in school, high school. I graduated high school. I'm giving away my age. I don't care, you know, but I graduated high school in 1998. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying? And we're talking about 1 year after I graduated, you got this mass shooting that's taking place in a high school.
Right.
So for me, it's like just from a, you know, like I feel very close, you know, age wise to having that experience of being, you know, what I'm saying, a high school kid and seeing, you know, and living in a again a mass shooting culture, because now it's not just a one off. This is now like a reality for us. You know what I'm saying? it's like an everyday reality. But what you thinking though?
I know when Columbine hit, I was actually in high school. And
Okay.
I believe they said I graduated in 2002, and they said it was like somebody, I don't know if they said trench coat mafia or something like that. I'm
Yeah.
not sure. That's what they were calling those.
Yeah. Yeah. Two kids with trench coats. You know what I'm saying? I think M16s. I can't remember, but you know what I'm saying, having the ability to go into a high school and just pull off what they pulled off. But yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. They were I look at it in two ways. I actually wrote a song called Anti-Bully, where I
Mm-hmm.
talk about, on one of the verses, I kind of talk about why these things may be happening, but there are two sides of the
Okay.
coin there. It's not just that. But in that instance, you found out that those kids were being bullied, not to excuse what they did, but they were kind of outcast type kids and stuff
Yeah.
like that, making fun of them. I remember even, I'm guilty of it too. When I was in high school, you would have those cats with the trench coats and the rock, I forgot what we would call them, headbangers or whatever,
Yeah.
talk about them people and all that kind of stuff, man. And there wasn't really, like now, people, when it comes to bullying now, people is more sensitive. People take it more serious. But back then, and even before that, bullying was just the way it was, and people was overlooking it. But
Mm-hmm.
then things happened, and some of those things came out. That's why those students may have felt the press to do that, or felt so much hate in their
Mm-hmm.
heart
Yeah.
to do that may be what drove them over the edge to do that. In various situations, you even got Santa Fe, which is in the Texas area too, which is a few years ago when I was teaching in the house at the high school level, or right after I left high school level. Santa Fe High School, they had a mass shooting at their high school, a few years back as well. I'm not sure the details of that, so I don't want to give the wrong thing. But you got that type of thing. Then you got, sometimes they say it's mental illness, but in the case of the Uvalde shooting with Salvador Ramos, from what I was looking at with him, it didn't say anything regarding mental illness. He just had it seemed like he had a lot of hate in his heart. One thing, man, hate can really consume you. Hate and unforgiveness and things like that, man, is a reason why God says for us to forgive. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah. But I just to kind of interject, I thought his issue was more so. I could be wrong, but I thought his issue was more so that he wanted to graduate and he couldn't graduate, and
okay,
so, and so he took out that anger and that frustration. I could be wrong, you know what I'm saying? I'll definitely check it while we still here, but yeah, that's what, from what I understand, that's what I thought took place.
but if that was the case, like I didn't see that, because it's still developments. Like this story happened about 2 weeks ago, but it's still new developments constantly
Yeah.
churning, constantly coming out.
Yeah.
Man, if that was the case, what I want to know is why, even in the case of both of them, in the case of Adam Lanza as well, why do we think Adam Lanza and Salvador Ramos choose to
Mhm.
target elementary schools? I have a theory about that, but if Salvador Ramos was upset because he was not able to graduate, why target an elementary school? Can you share your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm saying, of course, there's a lot of things that it take, what I'm saying, from that internally could have took place, right? So, and because I don't know him from an internal standpoint, I really can't speak to that. But I'm kind of wondering if it's like, we always talk about soft targets, right?
Mhm.
If, what I'm saying, who could I kill, or where could I, if I'm a shooter, where would I go where I know that I can inflict the most harm, you know what I'm saying, and get the least resistance, right? And what place would be the most unsuspecting, as far as me coming up there and doing damage, the way, what I'm saying, if I wanted to inflict harm, what place would be the most unsuspecting, and so that's what I'm assuming. He may have had like blood relations in that school. It's so, like you said, there's so much that's being developed, you know what I'm saying, and I hadn't really had, like a chance to really, dive into the details as much. But, what I'm saying, it is one of those things where you're just sitting here and you're just wondering, you know, why would he pick, saying that elementary? And the only thing I could think of is that it's the easy target, saying young kids, your little kids can't shoot back, saying they're defenseless, somebody brought up the fact that, saying maybe he got a mental illness. Some people are saying mental illness. One of the things that I feel like doesn't get talked about a lot these days, because right now we're in a culture where we do talk a lot about mental illness and mental health, and mental health is important. But at the same time, I think one of the things that get missed or overlooked is, saying like, in a sense, the dark forces, saying demonic, demonic influences, in our culture, demonic influences in, amongst the people within our culture. And because we have a tendency to focus on mental health, on mental health, which can be diagnosed, you can go, you can get that diagnosed, you can get, like, what's the diagnosis for demonic oppression? What's the diagnosis for demonic possession? you know Somebody's dealing with that. How do you first, how do you first, because we don't have a culture that says let's check into these things. Everything is science, science, science. And I'm not knocking science. I'm just saying that if we only say let's look at the science and we don't look at the spiritual aspects, we do tend to overlook some of the things that can go, or we do tend to, basically we overlook some of the things that are the reality, that is also part of our reality. And so, what I'm saying, like, so again, it could be mental health, but I also wonder if it's demonic influence, what I'm saying, that hey, go to where you can inflict the most damage, and how the enemy could, saying, possibly play a role in that, so. But yeah. But
People say, and I agree with you on that, on the spiritual side, man. Because people say it's mental illness. People say they heard voices or things,
right.
which leads me to believe. I mean, you hear demons or devil trying to tell you to do certain things, putting certain ideas in you and all that kind of stuff all the time, man. It may be controversial to discuss it from this angle, but yeah, those spirits, the spirit realm is real. Demons are real, and they will try to tell you to do certain things. If you're giving yourself over to a sin nature or whatever you're ingesting, you know, Ouija boards, on the scary movies, things like certain things discussed in certain songs, in certain music and stuff like that. You could be opening yourself up to those demonic influences. Case in point, man, this might be a little bit off topic, but when I, back probably 2010, 2011, somewhere around there, it's real big. They had this site called Vigilant Citizen. I don't know if they still have it. They would talk about the symbolism in the music videos and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Show, like, they would say people part of Illuminati, all this kind of stuff, and they would show the symbolism.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to get enthralled in that and be watching that stuff and all that. And as I'm watching that stuff, I literally, because I'm spiritual, I'm a Christian, all the kinds, I could literally feel the demonic presence coming when they're showing that symbolism and talking about all that various symbolism. Then you look at the people behind the camera. Sometimes they would show on their website, they would show the people who were producing or directing or whatever. You see that they have clothes on with demonic pictures and photographs, like the Baphomet on their shirt, and stuff like that, which people wouldn't really know. Or you see things with serpents and stuff like that. I know this Lil Wayne video one time had a serpent that had an angel, a black angel with, like, not a black angel, but it was like a dark angel with, like, black wings and stuff like that. So this stuff is real, man, and you can feel that coming in when and if you don't know, you're not spiritually in tune, know your Bible in the church, whatever, things like that, being taught these things, you don't really know how to handle that.
Yeah, but I mean, and I hear that. I think that, see, I kind of wonder exactly how much, saying, our entertainment, saying, the music or whatever has, and I do believe that there's influence. Don't get me wrong. I just wonder how much it plays, right? because I'm sitting here looking at all these school shootings and I'm asking myself, I remember, we talk about Chicago, you know what I'm saying? Like all the, like all the, killings that would take place in Chicago and I remember like sometimes the one thing that people used to always blame was like hip hop music, like rap music, you know what I'm saying, that it must be all this rap music that, you know what I'm saying, that kids, that we were listening to that would influence us, or influence, this quote unquote black on black crime. But when you look at all these shootings, a lot of this ain't black folks. You know what I'm saying? A
Yeah.
lot of this is not your typical hip hop, saying enthusiasts,
Yeah.
saying, or like people that you would, that would sit and that would listen to hip hop, right? You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? Columbine High School, none, saying the kids that died were not, the kids that died and the shooters that were doing the shooting, they weren't listening to hip hop, you
Yeah.
know? And I'm
But
not saying, and it's not just hip hop, right? Because we talk about rock and roll, but I just wonder, what I'm saying, because we do, what I'm saying, like our culture. I remember growing up, we listened to a lot of hip hop. The '90s was a culture of gangster hip hop, gangster rap. You know what I'm saying? But yet, you don't see, when you look at all the school shootings that took place, at least the ones that would inflict the most trauma, I don't see it, what I'm saying? I don't see us, what I'm saying? And I'm not trying to make it a racial thing, but I'm just saying I feel it's kind of weird that, what I'm saying, that hip hop music was coined as being violent music, but yet when it comes to school shootings, hip hop music is not, what I'm saying, it's not at least hip hop, um, people who listen to hip hop are not the ones that are behind a lot of these shootings that are taking place, you know. And I understand that, when you talk about rock music and heavy metal, that there was a violent, saying that it's typically seen as there's a violent element in heavy metal. But the funny thing about it is you don't see heavy metal artists being brought to, saying, questioned about their lyrics or their influence, saying, I'm just trying to, I got a lot of stuff floating in my head. I'm just trying to make sense of it because I agree with you that, saying that there is a sense in which in our culture, at least from an artistic standpoint, there are influences that are beyond us, saying, that we can't see. And sometimes, and I don't know if these artists just have a tendency to just play with it because they think it's funny, or play around with it because it's cool, or just basically trying to be artistically, being express their artistry, um, by emphasizing some of the, saying, by having dark themes and dark undertones and stuff in their music. I just wonder how much of that actually has an impact in how people act when they're going to schools and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Because if that be the case, I wonder why there's not a lot of, saying, quote unquote, um, black men, saying, who would listen to your gangster hip hop, listen to your gangster rap, going into places and just shooting it up. I'm just wondering. Yeah. So I'm sorry. Just something that I just kind of wonder.
yeah, now I'm not saying that the rap is the only issue, because like you say, in the case of Columbine, the trench coat mafia, they were listening to heavy metal, type music and stuff like that. It's a lot of hatred. I don't really listen. I can't listen. That's the only genre of music that I can't really listen to. Now,
Mm-hmm.
in this most recent case of Salvador Ramos, I don't know what type of music he was listening to or anything like that. But what I do know, to transition
Mm-hmm.
a little bit, I feel like this could have been. This is something I've been thinking about, looking at the facts and all that kind of stuff. I feel like this is something that could have been stopped ahead of time, or could have been investigated. Because I don't know if you ever heard of a social media site out of France called Yubo.
No, not at all.
There's actually reports that there was a social media site out of France called Yubo that targets Generation X,
Mm-hmm.
Gen Z, I believe, because that's what isn't that the 18-year-olds and stuff like that below us?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Gen Zers. Yeah.
They, they target Gen Zers, small groups and live streaming and things of that nature. Well,
Mm-hmm.
it was reported that this young man actually did live streams where he threatened to shoot up in elementary school. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
He actually messaged young ladies who did not reply to his sexual advances like he thought they would, letting them know that he was going to he threatened to rape them. He threatened to kill their family and shoot up their school, their high school, and things of that nature. These young ladies reported that to this UB site. This was back in April. You know what I'm saying? So you got April, May, June. You got 2 months before this happens, April and May, that this was reported. You know what I'm saying?
This
That he's
this is
making these
this
type of
this,
threats.
this is the same Salvador Ramos you talking about.
Yes, the same Salvador Ramos. This
Wow.
was reported in April to these sites, and nothing was done. These young ladies came, various platforms and let them know that nothing was done about this. You got him on live stream saying that he's gonna shoot up in elementary school, and I'm like, what? I just don't understand. So my question is, um, do you think social media sites should monitor? And they say they monitor this kind of stuff. This young man was still able to be on this site, still able to post, still able to communicate with people and all this. Do you think social media sites should be held, held accountable for these type of things? At the very least,
Mm-hmm.
I feel they should have took him off the platform and given this information to the authorities, even if they're located in France. Personally, I feel like this information should have been handed over to the authorities so they could start at least investigating him. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, man. You know, it's kind of I think that, what I'm saying, in a sense, I think in a sense, you know, people gotta start people gotta think a little bit about like there is, like every one of us, what I'm saying, should be socially responsible, right? You
Right.
know, that if we see something that is like in a sense out of the ordinary, something that, what I'm saying, like something like that, what I'm saying, we should, what I'm saying, like we all have a collective responsibility to report, what I'm saying, report these things. Um, and if they had the ability to do it, they should have reported it. And, what I'm saying, if they saw something like that, they should. I would, what I'm saying, let me just put it like this. I say flat out yes. What I'm saying? And it's not because I'm thinking about my children, right? I got a 9 and a 7-year old, and I would want to make sure, or I would hope that, what I'm saying, that when my children are going to school, that as a community, all of us are looking out for our children. You know what I'm saying? Because I want my children to go to school, and I want them to come home unharmed. You know what I'm saying? And I would hope that if there was a media site or a group, a watchdog group or whatever, that these things are getting reported that can keep my children out of harm's way, then I would hope that that watchdog group would, would report these things, or whoever is, would report these things so that we can prevent incidents like this from happening. You know what I'm saying? And I hope that it will be done wisely. And I hope that it will be done, and some people would say expeditiously, you know what I'm saying? Like with expedience, like, yeah. Um, because this stuff is scary, you know what I'm saying? Like as a parent, you pray and you hope that your children go to school and they come home safely. But above and beyond that, you know what I'm saying? I think, and I hate to say this, I get tired of hearing, the fact that people offer thoughts and prayers, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because it almost seems like an excuse to get away from responsibility, right? You
Right.
know, I don't understand why in our culture today that there's not enough or more being done to protect our children, you know what I'm saying? Or to protect our communities. and I don't want to get into politics, but I feel like I got to, because on one hand you got people, and there was one guy on social media. He says that he's politically agnostic, and you know what I'm saying, and I remember hearing him talk about he will never vote Democrat, that he doesn't vote Democrat. And I'm not saying that people will have to vote Democrat. What I am saying is this: I have a problem with the fact that you got people who have the ability, uh, from a political standpoint. You got public officials, elected officials, who are elected to do a job, and they don't do it. You know what I'm saying? And I don't understand why we keep voting in the same elected officials, or keep emphasizing a party that does not care about our children. You know what I'm saying? Now, again, I'm not a Democrat. I'm a registered independent. You know what I'm saying? But when I'm going and I'm thinking about who I'm voting for, I'm thinking about someone who is concerned about the safety of my children. We got, you know what I'm saying, we got this issue where we're trying to pass legislation that, again, is not a silver bullet, doesn't solve all the problems, but it makes it that much tougher for someone who could be demonically influenced, someone who can have a mental health issue or whatever, from being able to obtain weapons that could be used to, weapons that could be used to do harm. You know what I'm saying? And for some reason, bills like this are so hard to pass. It makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah.
I don't get it. You know what I'm saying? And one particular party that keeps stifling that bill. You know what I'm saying? Like, at some point, as Americans, you know what I'm saying, as people who live in this country, we gotta say, yo, if you are not going to do what is common sense, you gotta go. You
Right.
know, and like it just, and I hate to, I'm not trying to influence people to say, vote, Republican or vote Democrat or whatever. Vote what you think is best. But please, when you're thinking about who you're voting for, make sure that you are choosing to elect someone who cares about your children, who cares about your community, who puts safety as like their number one thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't tell you how many corporations that will tell you that safety is the number one thing. You know what I'm saying? That they are all about safety. More than dollars, they're all about safety, because they know that, that money, your economics is tied to safety. You know,
Mm.
you go, you go and use a product that can potentially harm you, you know, or whatever. Let's just say it's a cleansing, something that you use to clean, you know what I'm saying, whether it be bleach or whatever the case is, right? The minute that company finds out that, yeah, this particular product can cause harm and even lead to death, they make it absolutely clear, hey, this product could lead to death. You know what I'm saying? Or, hey, use this product in this way to avoid harming yourself, right? Because for them, their bottom line is, again, they're thinking from an economic standpoint. They want to make money, but they know they can't make money if that they got a product that is putting people in the grave.
Right.
Yet we keep electing officials, and we got officials that will not put public safety as their, or not make public safety as their number one priority. And I can't understand for the life of me why, saying, why we are not voting, or we're not choosing to elect people who do say, you know what, there's common sense ways in which we can eliminate, saying, potential things like this from happening in the future. You know
Mm.
what I'm saying? And, I just don't understand it. So we talk about what we can do as, as people that are in the public. What we can do more as citizens, and we're gonna say, watchdogs have a responsibility for, saying, for calling potential, mass shooters to the carpet. And I say, hey, at the same time, as Americans, we got a responsibility for calling out our elected officials to the carpet as well. You know what I'm saying? Because you can still be a Republican, you know what I'm saying? And you can still be a Second Amendment gun rights activist and still say we need to have common sense legislation that prevents, mass shootings in the future. But this stuff happens over and over, and you constantly we offer our thoughts and our prayers. Well, what thought and prayer is going to save my children if we're not, you know what I'm saying, if faith does not lead to action, then what's the point of thoughts and prayers?
Right.
To me, it does, you know what I'm saying? Like, it kind of bothers me that you got people who got the ability to do something and they choose not to. I just don't get it.
I don't get it either, man. To be more specific, I saw a tweet from Hillary Clinton the other day that said we don't need a MK-47 or M16 or something like that. And
Right.
I really relate to that, man. By Second Amendment gun, I understand the right to bear arms and stuff like that. I get that, you know, handguns, whatever, to protect. You feel like you need to protect your family, things like that, or even hunting type stuff or whatever. But you're not going out here when you're hunting using a machine gun, you know what I'm saying? Mowing down the deers and the boars, stuff like that. So I don't even the reason why these guns are available to the public. This is not the military, you know what I'm saying? We don't got people coming over here from overseas attacking us. You know what I'm saying? The military is supposed to take care of that. So those type of firearms and things of that nature, I feel like should only be available to members who are in the military or policemen, law enforcement, things like that, who need those type of weapons. But regular citizens don't need those type of weapons. And if there's a regular handgun, you know, if they try to come in there with a regular handgun, that situation can be de-escalated a lot quicker than if somebody got a machine gun that's throwing, I don't know specifics, but, you know, 30 rounds per minute or so, or few seconds or whatever like that. You know what I'm saying? At that point, you can't really do much about the situation, man. So I definitely agree with you, and I feel like specifically that they need to put some sort of ban on those type of firearms being available to the general public.
Yeah. Again, we don't just live in a gun culture. We live in a mass shooting culture. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have transitioned from just being a gun culture. Even being considered a gun culture was bad enough. We're now a culture that engages in mass shootings. You know what I'm saying? We got way too many people that got guns.
Yeah.
In Texas, where you know what I'm saying, where you lived and where I stayed for a minute, Texas, over 50% of the residents in Texas got guns.
Yeah.
That means 1 out of every 2 people got a gun.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and we, you know, again, we're at a point where we talk about mental health. We ain't even touched on demonic oppression or a demonic possession. Imagine the percentage of people, again, 1 out of 2 in Texas that got a gun. Out of that 1 out of 2 that got a gun, that 50% of residents in Texas or citizens, or how you want to call it, that got a gun, how many of them are dealing with a mental health crisis? Mm. How many of them are, you know what I'm saying, are experiencing episodes of demonic possession and oppression? You know what I'm saying? How many of them have the ability to inflict harm when it comes down to it? You know what I'm saying? Because again, people say, well, you know, we want to make sure that responsible citizens have guns, and we want to make sure that we keep guns out of the hands of criminals, and that makes sense. But the question is, when does somebody become a criminal? Because according to the laws, you're not a criminal until you've actually committed a crime and your crime has been documented. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? If there's no documentation of an individual committing a crime, that same individual can still have the ability to be a criminal in the future, even though they may not be considered a criminal in the present.
Yeah. So there's not any. So just as I'm just want to ask this question. So there's not any type of regulation except for when you go get a gun that you can't have any priors or something like that. There's nothing regarding that they scan or look through far as mental health and things like that.
No, like from state to state is different, right? You know,
Okay.
every state has policies and procedures that are put in place when somebody says they want to buy a gun. You know what I'm saying? They go to the store to buy a gun. There's certain places like, I can, like there's also where you can buy a gun from another individual. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? Now, if I say I want to buy a gun from you, you know what I'm saying? Like, what process do you got in place to ensure that I'm mentally capable, you know what I'm saying, that I'm in a place where I'm able to, you know what I'm saying, where I, you know what I'm saying, you get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
what process do you have in place to ensure that I can purchase a gun from you and I have met all the checks, all that check, that
Yes.
checklist, you know what I'm saying? So, citizen a citizen can purchase a gun from another citizen without having to go through all those checks, or you can just say, hey, I gave you my gun as a gift.
Mm.
We talked about that guy in Kenosha. I forgot his name, Rittenhouse, or what, I think it's Rittenhouse, right?
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, he goes into, gosh, and it's because I'm just spitting these things off the top of my head. But he goes into Kenosha and he starts shooting. Ryan Kyle Rittenhouse, or Ryan Rittenhouse, whatever his name is, right? I'll put, you know what, because I don't want to just be, saying spouting facts, or spouting things off my head and coming off as facts. But
Yeah.
Kyle Rittenhouse, right?
Right.
He
Yeah.
goes into Kenosha, when they're having all these protests because of that one guy who was, saying shot and paralyzed. I believe he was paralyzed by police officers who were basically trying to arrest him or whatever. And there's a protest that's taking place in Kenosha, I believe it's Wisconsin, and Kyle Rittenhouse brings, he brings a rifle, you know what I'm saying, to a protest, and he says that, hey, he's keeping the peace.
Right.
He's there on a peace key. This kid he's not even 18 yet.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And now, as a result of him bringing this particular weapon to a protest, people got killed.
Yeah.
At least two people got killed, from what I understand. Why does he? Why does a kid that is under 18 got a rifle?
Right.
Transporting that rifle into another state, not even where he's from. He's in another location. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it's just, to me, it's just maddening that, saying that we got lax gun laws. And so again, I'm back, I'm going like, I'm going off key or whatever, but I'm just saying that, I think from what I understand, in Kyle Rittenhouse situation, he was given a gun by a friend. You
Mm.
know what I mean? Somebody fact check me or whatever. But he was given a gun by a friend. He easily was able to obtain something that can inflict harm from somebody else. You know what I'm saying? Whether that friend sold it to him or whatever, that's how he was able to get it. The problem is that if we don't have like a federal policy where every state has to comply to these basic set of rules as far as guns are concerned, and to obtain how guns are obtained, then we're going to continue having these problems, because again, we live in a gun culture. Oh,
Right.
let me correct myself. We live in a mass shooting culture.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, Indiana, it's easy to obtain guns in Indiana. Those same guns that are being obtained in Indiana, where there's lax gun policies, are now transported into Chicago, where, what I'm saying, where street gangs now got access to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though Chicago has strict gun policies, how do you regulate illegal guns being trafficked into Chicago from a state that got lax gun policies?
Right.
We live in a mass shooting culture, and so it's problems, man. And we got about 10 more minutes because I know we can go on this, and I really wanted to get into Buffalo. What took place in Buffalo, with that shooting that took place there. We don't really have enough time, but what do saying? What do you feel like, saying at this particular moment? What do you think should be like action, saying actions that need to be taken to address these issues? Saying, like, because we talked about offering thoughts and prayers, but at this particular point, that's not enough. You
Yeah.
know, what do you think should be some actionable steps? You
Like
know,
like you said, I agree regarding the legislation. There needs to be stricter legislation in place to monitor people who are getting even able to get a handgun or something like that. I believe that these automatic weapons, semi-automatic weapons, and things of that nature, if it's not used, if it's not a type of weapon that's used for hunting or a type of weapon that's a handgun or something like that, I don't feel like it should be available to the public anyway. That should be military grade, but there are military grade rifles that are available to the public. That's a big problem. So legislation definitely needs to take place regarding that. Another big thing, and I kind of want to ask you about this, but this is my thing because I have a child coming. You have kids that are in elementary right now. You know what I'm saying? I feel like at the elementary level, because on the high school level and the middle school level, they actually have officers that are resident officers of that particular school. You know,
mhm,
the middle school level, you have one officer. I'm not sure if they've heightened that because I haven't retired at the middle school level. But when I was in middle school, we had one officer, Officer Pittman, who was at school. The high school level, you'll see various officers. They have an office there. It might be about two or three officers on the high school level that are resident officers that are there. I feel like the elementary school, you don't have any resident officers. The only time the officers come is when there's a situation. So I believe the school should devote funding towards having officers, at least two resident officers at the elementary school level at every public elementary school. You know what I'm saying? Across the country. That's one thing I think can discourage this, because the reason I feel like these young men may have chosen, like you said, an easy target like elementary school is because they know there are no resident officers at the elementary school. It's going to take longer for someone to get there and be able to be called. Matter of fact, in this situation, um, there's facts coming out that they did not enter
mhm,
the school. He was in there locked in for an hour doing what he was doing before they came.
mhm.
Tactical force, border patrol or somebody came, but the county police or the school district police or something like that, they were outside waiting to come in because they heard him in there shooting. I don't know all the facts on it, but that type of stuff keeps coming out. So if there's already officers inside, that would discourage people from trying to do that. At the very least, they can take care of the situation faster because they're already there. You know what I'm saying? You don't
Yeah,
got first responders. But there's reports of kids calling several times, now when letting they did not go in. I don't know why they didn't go in, maybe for their safety, I'm not sure, or wanted to wait till they had people in the gear or whatever for that type of stuff. But
yeah,
those are some of the actions I feel like right off the top we should do. I know it may be, more trouble for people to do it, but there needs to be some type of psych evaluation, or this stuff is on file. You know what I'm saying? I know HIPAA is an issue and all that kind of stuff, but when you want to get a firearm, that needs to be your mental health needs to be looked into. And if
yeah,
you're under 17, if you 18, you know what I'm saying? Why do you have they able to buy guns at 18, but are people able to get their hands on their parents' guns and things like that? But there needs to be some type of more checks and balances in place to discourage this type of thing.
yeah, yeah. I, I would definitely say that, I think that, again, we having a messianic perspective as well. We talk about elected officials having a responsibility. I think that in a culture where a lot of our people who get elected are influenced by, by a Christian, Christian, let me put it out there like this.
Okay.
When it comes to the Republican Party, most of them say that, they are Christian. They are, they advocate for the Bible. Um,
Mm.
and they say this, saying that this is what they stand on. These are the principles that they stand on, quote unquote, more so than the Democratic Party. I went to a church in Houston. When we first got there, we was at this church for about a couple of years. I ain't gonna put the name of the church out there. I remember the pastor taking a picture, on having a picture on Facebook, and he was a senior pastor of the church. He took a picture on Facebook holding a rifle, and it turned me off. It turned me off to the point that I think that was one of the reasons why we ended up leaving the church.
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, it was like it made absolutely no sense for someone who is a pastor, and I'm not trying to pass judgment on. I'm just saying it didn't make sense. I couldn't see the connection.
Yeah.
Between someone who is supposed to symbolically represent a position of peace, a position of love, um, a position of servitude, being a servant leader, yet he proudly was showing and displaying that he had, that he had, had weapons, or he was big on on having weapons. I'm not saying that, as believers, we shouldn't have weapons. Again, I agree. I hold to the Second Amendment. It's part of what makes our culture our culture. It's part of what makes the United States the United States. My problem is when symbolically we say one thing but symbolically represent something else. You know what I'm saying? You're a preacher, you're a teacher, you're an elder, pastoral figure, whatever. You are, number one, a servant leader, and you speak to the conscience of the people that are in your community. What does it say when you are proudly taking pictures of holding rifles and guns and all that stuff? What is the message that's being conveyed? And sadly, a majority of our politicians are influenced, or at least from the Republican standpoint, are influenced by pastoral figures who proudly have guns and display guns and show guns as if it's their God-given right to carry a gun. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, in the scriptures, you got people who had swords. So I'm not against having, I'm not saying that people shouldn't have weapons. I'm just saying that what should be conveyed, what should be promoted and advocated when, when our society sees us is that we are people of peace, that we're peacemakers, and that we're constantly emphasizing peace, and that we're symbolically representing peace. I got a problem when we're looking like we represent war.
Yeah.
That we're representing battles.
Mm-hmm.
And our elected officials, again, they identify with Christianity when it comes to abortion. They identify with Christianity when it comes to same-sex marriage. How come they don't identify with Christianity, when it comes to keeping our communities safe?
When it comes to thou shalt not kill.
Yeah. Like, people say, well, I'm pro-life, and another group says, well, I'm pro-abortion. I'm like, well, I'm whole life. You know what I'm saying? My position is whole life. I require for you, and for everybody that is around me to keep, for us to keep each other safe.
Right.
In all aspects. I just have a problem with the fact that, you know what I'm saying, that we have uh a lot of people who sit on the pulpit who are not calling, you know what I'm saying, the elected officials who come to their churches. You know what I'm saying? We're not calling those same elected officials to the carpet. And we constantly advocate for the foolishness that they do. And then we, you know what I'm saying? And then we stamp Christianity on top of it as if that is what God is saying.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Where are the peacemakers in the Republican Party? Why are we having a pro-gun, you know what I'm saying, a pro gun culture being reflected in our churches? You know what I'm saying? Again, you have the rights to have a weapon. I'm not saying that people shouldn't have a weapon. You know what I'm saying? But my question is, what are we promoting? And why are our politicians who go to these churches not listening? If that be the case.
Right.
You know?
That,
Yeah. Because financially, the church, the evangelical church, they put a lot of money towards these politicians. Why is that not having an impact on these policies that should be protecting our community? I don't get it.
yeah.
So I say, I'll say this, that as far as us being able to, you know what I'm saying, from a messianic perspective, we should be advocating for, you know what I'm saying, advocating for things that will ensure that, hey, that my children come home safely from school, that my kids can get to school safely. I was just reading on the news not long ago where a woman was actually shooting at a school bus. Yeah, shooting at a school bus in Gwinnett County. Kids trying to go to school. She's shooting at the school bus, hoping to hit a child. We're in that culture. We're in that culture.
Yep.
Any last words, bro?
That's heavy, man. That's a great closing thought, man. We may end up having to pick up this conversation again because I know there's a lot more that we could have delved into. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Maybe by two in the future, man. But on another note, man, I just want us to let the people know, like what we got coming up and where they can find us online and things like that before we go, and we'll leave it there because I think we gave people a lot to think about tonight.
Yeah.
And comment about, you know what I'm saying? This should be an ongoing discussion of what we can do to get these things in motion.
Yeah. Yeah. I like I said, you can like, share, subscribe. You know what I'm saying? That's the biggest. That's going to help this channel. You know what I'm saying? And as we again get better and better in what we do, you know what I'm saying, you can be a part of that journey. You know what I'm saying? Like, share, and subscribe. You know, subscribe to our channel. You know what I'm saying? 13 Tribe Podcast. Also, you know what I'm saying, on Facebook, look up, you know what I'm saying, 13th Amendment, or, you know what I'm saying, Leader Manadum. That's my government name. That's the name my mama gave me. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Shout out to my mom and my dad. You know what I'm saying? We got an event coming up, I believe on the 18th of June, where we're gonna be rocking it, you know what I'm saying? And we're gonna put some more information out there, you know what I'm saying? Rivka, where can they find you at, man?
Yeah, man, the website on all social media platforms, Rifika or Rifika777. There's a lot of updates about what we're doing. It's
Yeah.
13 Tribe on there. You see some teasers from the last one, and we'll be putting up regular teasers once a week. And leading to the podcast, but if you're liked and subscribed to us, you'll get it as soon as possible, like as soon as live, which will be earlier in the week. But if you want to check out things that we've done or see the flyer about the event we have coming up, Rifika or Rifika777 is where you can find me and add me. I love to hear what you hear from you and connect with you online. And as we grow, we got future platforms that you're gonna be able to connect with us on. TikTok, that will be in the works, as well as Instagram, that will be in the works. And when those are available, we will let you know. But the journey's been great so far. There's been a lot of good buzz, and we love y'all going on the journey with us, man. Really enjoying y'all and the feedback y'all giving, and keep that coming.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for y'all for tuning in. You know what I'm saying? Again, let's keep that buzz going. We got so many different topics coming up. We want to be able to touch on everything. So, man, you know what I'm saying? Again, thanks for tuning in. 13 Tribe podcast, 13 Tribe. We, you know what I'm saying, we just doing big things, and we hope to see you on the next broadcast. All right. Peace and love. Like, share, subscribe. We out.
All right, we out.
Peace.